it can open your eyes. One book can open your world. Knowledge gives you power. Read and rise higher. 9R Tree. Better life begins in a book.
Hello, I'm Sebastian. Welcome to 9R Tree's podcast. Today, I will summarize and review the book, Native Nations. A Millennium in North America reframes the story of the continent by placing indigenous nations at the center of power, diplomacy, and change over the last 1,000 years. Kathleen DuVal guides readers from the rise of complex societies such as Cahokia to the emergence of confederacies and empires built by Haudenosaunee, Comanche, and numerous other peoples, and forward to the legal and cultural resurgence of the present. Rather than treating Native history as a prelude to European settlement, the book follows indigenous priorities, strategies, and decisions that shaped the fate of colonizers and nation-states alike. Drawing on archaeology, linguistics, environmental history, and indigenous scholarship, DuVal shows how trade networks, kinship ties, and governance systems spanned the continent long before and long after first contact. The result is a sweeping, accessible narrative that replaces myths of disappearance with a clear view of endurance, adaptation, and continuing sovereignty that still informs North American life today. I will give you key takeaways from this book. Firstly, centering indigenous sovereignty and perspective. The book begins by resetting the vantage point from which North American history is told. Instead of measuring indigenous peoples by their proximity to Europe or the United States, DuVal treats Native nations as sovereign polities with their own priorities, laws, and diplomatic traditions. This perspective reveals a continent already full of cities, ceremonial centers, diverse economies, and sophisticated governance when Europeans arrived. Political decisions made by councils, clan mothers, and leaders were grounded in kinship obligations and cosmologies that gave shape to alliances and conflicts. By following those internal logics, the narrative uncovers how Native agendas directed trade routes, migration, and warfare, and how newcomers had to adapt to indigenous rules to survive. This framework also exposes the limits of colonial power, since European empires often depended on Native consent for land, passage, and security. Through careful use of indigenous sources and methods, the book restores agency to communities often portrayed as passive, highlighting the strategies by which they negotiated, resisted, accommodated, or transformed relations with outsiders while protecting autonomy across centuries. Secondly, networks, economies, and confederacies across a continent. DuVal maps the deep continental connections that predate colonization and endure beyond it. From the Mississippi Valley to the Southwest and Pacific coast, peoples exchanged copper, shells, turquoise, bison products, and ideas through trade routes that linked river systems and portage paths. These exchanges fostered shared religious practices, artistic styles, and diplomatic conventions that supported peace or structured rivalry. Confederacies such as the Haudenosaunee leveraged consensus governance and ritual diplomacy to manage intertribal relations and influence French, Dutch, and British policies. In the plains and Southwest, Comanche and other equestrian powers built regional empires grounded in mobility, raiding, and commerce, channeling horses, captives, and goods through markets that tied Spanish colonies and native towns together. The book shows how economic specialization and ecological stewardship underwrote political authority, and how shifts in climate or species availability demanded adaptation. By emphasizing interdependence among native nations, DuVal demonstrates that continental history is best understood as a web of indigenous exchanges where Europeans participated as newcomers rather than as primary architects of change. Thirdly, borderlands and the balance of powers in the Age of Empires. When European empires entered North America, they stepped into an arena already governed by native protocols. DuVal highlights how borderlands functioned as negotiated spaces where indigenous diplomats, warriors, and communities controlled access to land and resources. Alliances were not fixed but conditional, with native leaders exploiting imperial rivalries to secure trade goods, military support, or recognition of territorial claims. The balance of power shifted constantly, yet it rarely excluded indigenous decision-makers. Treaties often codified native terms, even when colonizers later violated them. In many regions, imperial survival depended on native provisioning, intelligence, and safe passage, which granted leverage to hosts. The book also explores how religious orders, fur companies, and settlers learned to speak indigenous political languages, whether through gift exchange, adoption, or ritual, to win influence. Borderlands thus appear not as edges of European domains, but as contested diplomatic centers that native nations shaped, policed, and sometimes closed. This reorientation makes clear that the trajectory of colonization was neither linear nor inevitable, but contingent on indigenous choices. Fourthly, catastrophe, adaptation, and legal creativity, disease, invasion, and dispossession brought profound upheaval, yet DuVal emphasizes the strategic adaptations that sustained communities. Population losses forced the reweaving of kinship networks through adoption and intertribal alliances. Leaders experimented with new forms of governance and military organization, including pan-native movements, to confront threats ranging from removal to allotment. Legal creativity became a vital tool. Nations pursued treaty-making to affirm sovereignty, used petitions and court cases to defend territory, and translated customary law into forms legible to colonial and national governments without abandoning indigenous jurisprudence. Economic innovation also mattered, from rebuilding bison economies to farming, ranching, and modern enterprises that supported cultural life. The book does not minimize violence or betrayal, but it avoids narratives of inevitable decline. By tracking how native diplomats, intellectuals, and activists reframed rights and responsibilities over time, the narrative shows that survival rested on flexible institutions and collective memory. This history clarifies why treaties remain living law and why land back, water protection, and heritage preservation draw strength from centuries of precedent. Lastly, continuity, self-determination, and resurgence into the present. The final chapters carry the story into the 20th and 21st centuries, showing how native nations renewed sovereignty through court decisions, policy reforms, and cultural revival. DuVal traces the shift from termination to self-determination, the growth of tribal governments and intertribal organizations, and the assertive use of jurisdiction over land, people, and resources. Language revitalization, repatriation of ancestors and sacred items, and stewardship of fisheries, forests, and sacred sites exemplify a broader resurgence grounded in community law and knowledge. Economic development, from energy projects to tourism and gaming, appears as one instrument among many, evaluated by each nation according to its own goals. The book connects indigenous leadership to contemporary challenges such as climate adaptation, conservation, and infrastructure, where traditional ecological knowledge informs regional planning. By ending in the present, DuVal underscores continuity. Native polities have not re-emerged from absence, but persisted, innovated, and led. Readers leave with a clear understanding that the future of North America is inseparable from the rights, institutions, and visions of its First Nations. In conclusion, Native Nations, A Millennium in North America is essential for readers who want a clear, authoritative, and humane account of the continent that does not erase Indigenous agency. Students and educators will value its sweep, careful sourcing, and classroom-ready clarity. General readers will appreciate narrative momentum and vivid case studies that connect past to present. Policymakers, journalists, and advocates will gain usable history on treaties, jurisdiction, and stewardship that clarifies current debates over land, water, and sovereignty. Choose this book because it delivers both breadth and depth across a full millennium, integrating archaeology, law, and Indigenous scholarship without sacrificing readability. Many histories gesture toward inclusivity. DuVal builds the story from native priorities outward, showing how those priorities shaped empires, borders, economies, and modern governance. If you want a single volume that can change how you see North America and equip you to act with more understanding and respect, this is the book to buy. If you would like to support Kathleen DuVal, you can buy the book through the Amazon link I've provided in the podcast description. After reading the book, please let me know what you think and share your thoughts. See you around.
1 minute can open your eyes. One book can open your world. Vantage gives you power, read and rise higher. 9R tree, better life begins in a book.